Tonight, we head to Daytona International Speedway to see how drivers handle spending Monday in a pack. GridVision presents Superspeedway Mondays as we get set for a new series brought to you by First Coast Fleets here on GridVision. I'm Justin Pritz. Alongside with the booth for tonight is Brian Britt with Zendo Collins producing as we get set for a brand new series. Multiple drivers from across the iRacing service, many from several series we cover here on GridVision, looking to see how they do a part of this new Superspeedway series here throughout Monday nights here on GridVision. Brian, The action expected to be intense tonight to start the season. 4 different types of cars to be utilized in this championship, and it all starts with the quest for a championship here at the World Center of Racing.
Yeah, definitely going to be incredibly exciting to see all kinds of different plate tracks or super speedway style racing on the schedule. I know next week we're going to be having the Gen 6 at Atlanta Motor Speedway, or Atlanta Super Speedway as it has been dubbed. So going to be good to see that Gen 6 back in action. Of course, tonight we're going to be running the NASCAR Next Gen, of course. Now, this one is a little bit more of a tricky car to drive on these super speedways. We kind of talked a little bit about that before the broadcast, how hard it is to kind of stay in the draft. If you make one little mistake, you're going to end up falling off and losing that draft, and that could be the death nail to your chance to win this race here. Of course, we do have possibility of cautions, but you know, it's going to be definitely, I think, somewhat of a challenge for these guys to all stay in one pack. I think we're going to see some spreading out.
The qualifying times populating on the left side of your screen. A large amount of entries getting set to go here at Daytona. How things work out tonight in turn. 65 laps on the docket from the Superspeedway here in Florida. In turn, there's also a stage at lap 30 that will be completed then. No cautions, 4 stages, a part of the series points tally and throughout this campaign. In turn as well, expecting to be a one-stopper on the gas. But it could be interesting how things break out before that respective mark, with this being such a track and such a car, where on the long runs too, those tires can actually melt off fairly quickly, and we've seen spins in the pack from drivers on those tires.
That's an interesting point. I mean, I'm curious to see how that kind of plays out. I mean, also you have the kind of the variable of the gears as well. I mean, of course, these guys are all on a fixed, custom fixed setups provided by Reaper Speed Lab. But the setup itself, you know, the gear, you can run 4th gear, I do believe, out in front, or if you're by yourself on the racetrack. But you're going to want to be in 5th, I think, if you're really in heavy drafting kind of style racing. So that's going to be something that we're going to have to really keep an eye on, you know, to kind of, you know, what gears guys are running in. You know, if you run in 4th in the pack, you're going to redline, could end up seeing some temperature issues. So definitely curious to see how that all plays out. And of course, we mentioned those, you know, the guys making this a one stop. Even though this is one stop, it's still going to be kind of, you know, could be different considering. I know when you're in front, you could probably make it about 36 laps on a tank of gas. When you're in the pack, you can make it a little bit of about 40. So that's a big difference, and that is also going to limit the strategy of the leader if you stay in the lead for a long time.
Just a few moments before we get to tonight's starting grid, and a big emphasized point when it comes to tonight. Only 8 drivers, interestingly enough, putting up qualifying times. A majority of our competitors to start this new series, it looks like, electing to start at the back. Is that going to be the right play early on? 10 drivers setting times over the course of 5 minutes. That's it.
That's kind of surprising. I mean, I don't know. I think they're a little bit cautious. When you see a new series, you don't know what to expect. So I think they're just erring on the side of caution here. As I do believe we've had a little bit of time actually added to the qualifying clock here. Interesting to see that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I always feel like the safest place at a super speedway to be is up front, especially with this next-gen car. It's so easy to lose the draft. I would want to be in the lead and just be in control of the pack.
So things just about locked up and in here amongst the qualifying session. Again, 11 total drivers in the midst of that point, putting up lap times as part of this qualifying session, just waiting for things to transition over towards that said starting grid here from Daytona International Speedway. Plenty of drivers to keep an eye on. If you keep an eye on GridVision competition, and many of the top leagues, drivers like Chad McGinley, a part of tonight's action. Others like Craig Yancek in the entry list, and onset list. Sean Boundy and Noah Rainwater coming over from Thunderclap as they complete their season, and many more. Also, Austin Derbyshire decided to jump into a race car here. I haven't seen him do that in a couple of years.
You love to see it. You love to see it. I mean, glad to see him able to kind of step down from the cameras and be able to get down there behind the wheel. As it looks like we are going to be moving on to the race session here. 65 laps at Daytona. Grid set.
Let's take a look at your starting grid as Chad McGinley starts things off on the pole tonight. He'll start alongside Mark Royce. Sean Boundy, one of the top drivers in Thunderclap this season, starting the third alongside Noah Rainwater. Next up, Craig Yancek, a champion in champion competition, with James Self making a return back to action for the first time in a while. He starts in 6th. Robert Lawrence starts off in 7th, with Timothy Babcock back in 8th. Bobby Mantle starts off in 9th, one of the drivers from Sunday's action, the Global Racing League. He'll be joined alongside Vaison Shayeth in the side, your top 10 tonight.
11th place, Daniel Ott. Of course, 12th place, Tyler Meeks, another driver we're familiar with from Champion, I do believe. 13th place, Dustin Buck. Haven't seen him before, so he's kind of going to be a new unknown, I should say. 14th, of course, Alan Warnick, I do believe. 15th, Mark McFadden. 16th, our very own, the unsung hero of GridVision, Austin Derbyshire. 17th, Jonathan Wiley. And 18th, Cody Sanderson. So 18 cars going to be making their way into this race, and only one's going to be the winner.
We'll see how tonight plays things together amongst these 65 laps. Just waiting on one driver to make their way to the starting grid, and we can make our way to the racetrack. Once again, 65 laps distance tonight, a stage end at lap 30 for points. 18 entries to start off the new campaign. Part of a busy next few weeks, to say the very least. Again, this respective series has stretches of 4 weeks, then a break 3 times over in the battle for the championship right before Christmas Day. So as we get set to go, 2 competitors very well acquainted with each other when it comes to Global Racing League action, but McGinley also a driver who races a lot in this car up at the front to start. How do you think that plays in here for tonight, those drivers with the track position early?
I think it's going to be important to have that track position. Like I said before, I think it's very easy to lose a draft at this track. So I think that you're going to really want to have track position, and you're going to hopefully you have friends. So I know a lot of these guys are from different leagues. You know, we got Champion, we got Global Racing Truck Series, we got, Thunderclap. A lot of these guys don't know each other. So we'll have to see how they kind of, dance together for sure. Maybe we'll see some guys make some friends. And, one thing about Superspeedway racing that we're going to see all season long, it's all about friends. You're going to want to have somebody that you can rely on.
And in turn, you mentioned one of the keys to potentially win the championship. What are the keys to starting off the season right? Here, especially when it's all Superspeedways, where it's not just about the raw speed, but about the luck.
Yeah, it can very well be about luck. But, then again, I've seen guys that run Superspeedway races all the time that always find themselves up front. So there's got to be some sort of talent that's involved with it as well. It's decision-making, I think. I don't know if I would even characterize it as completely luck. I think part of it is luck, but I think a lot of it is decision-making, that you put yourself in certain positions. Now, we'll see, who makes the right decisions here tonight.
We'll see who makes the right calls on strategy, too, throughout the night and sets the tone. We're almost set to go racing. We're glad to have you with us tonight here on GridVision. It's GridVision Superspeedway Mondays, and it's a brand new series presented by First Coast Fleet Services. McGinley and Royce all set to begin a new series. We're underway from Daytona.
It looks like the top line got a better launch than really anybody there on the green flag. Mark Royce up front at the moment. Top line really moving. Now, that's kind of crazy to see, so early in this race. As Royce is going to drop down to the bottom, and we see that plain white car. That's no Rainwater up on the top. He is, of course, going to be pushed I do believe, by James South now. So we're seeing already a lot of movement here in this pack.
Keep in mind the top line known to be strong on starts and restarts. We'll see how that comes into play as the night progresses. But Rainwater, with the help of James South, a driver that has been with multiple different organizations, One Sim and Legacy amongst those of note, looking to peel Rainwater off the top. And the first lap led in series history goes to James South. Babcock and company already battling as Rainwater doesn't have help.
Yeah, Rainwater just got left out. They're treating him like he's got the plague. He's being held 3 wide. Looks like Austin Derbyshire, I do believe, is going to let him come up. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's a 64. Derbyshire kind of cuts him a little bit of a break, lets him out in front of him. Of course, that's that plain white car we're talking about, Noah Rainwater. So hopefully he'll get his paint scheme working next week. South up front in the lead at the moment. So we're still seeing some 3 wide action in the mid-pack.
Already a lot of blocking, and that's going to be something to keep an eye on early going. As to the inside goes Warnecke, who goes from the back to the front in a lap and a half.
Oh, and there he goes. He's turned through the grass. Oh, my goodness. And the yellow flag is going to come out as a result of this.
Caution flag is out indeed. First time tonight in series history as well. And they are still crashing towards turn one. Royce and several of the leaders crashing right at the other end of the tri-oval.
Yeah, something happened after we saw Warnecke go through the grass. So something else happened. You see Warnecke goes through the grass right here, and look at that. Just a massive pileup.
That's even after the first spin. That was the secondary incident where one car gets spun, then everybody spins.
One thing about it, I don't think these guys have a fast repair. Oh, no limit to fast repair. So these guys do have fast repairs. And a lot of times that can provoke this kind of level of aggression that we're seeing here to see an accident so early.
Offset 4 wide, by the way, on that.
Look at that accident. That was a big one. That's what you expect at Daytona. And James South's going to be lucky that he got out of that without any damage. And I think that's why when I say that you want to be up front, because that's where the less likely you are to get involved in a crash like this, because, I mean, you see all these guys that were behind just got caught up in it.
Rainwater already having to go to the pit lane as a result of the incident. Yeah, there's the reason for Rainwater's contact there. But that is at least half, if not 3/4 of the field in the first big one in series history. Pit lane's going to be probably very busy here, as several drivers still try and figure out where the pace car is. The top 3 and maybe a couple others dodged the wreck. Everybody else got at least a small bit in that contact.
Yeah, that was definitely a crazy wreck. Now, even though these guys do have fast repairs, I mean, they still do have to be able to make it to pit road, and Rainwater apparently was not able to do so. He is now a lap down. So that's going to be a heartbreaker for sure. But I think he's the only one. Everybody else pretty much, I think, is going to be able to continue fighting here, and Rainwater will pop. If we get another caution, we'll be able to get his lap back. But wow, what a crazy accident to start off this season.
Just about the entire field outside of Ott electing to come down. And you know the tough part about this timing of this too? You take the fast repair this early and you get yourself in a wreck, your first race is done potentially very early here if you're in a second incident. So do you take the manual damage repair? That's about 45 seconds to a minute per caution you can repair. Or do you risk it with the fast repair? It's only 60 to go, but we're still at the counterpoint on lap 5.
Well, I also do want to clarify as well. I don't know if I miscommunicated, but they have no limit to fast repairs.
Okay.
They have
that
as
makes
many
better
as
sense.
they possibly. They have all the fast repairs they could ever want. That's for sure. So I don't know. I mean, this is going to be that is going to provoke more aggression. I mean, these guys are not going to feel quite as bad about beating and banging. That's for sure. But still, even with the no limit of fast repairs, if your car is not damaged enough, or if your car is too damaged to make it to pit road, you still go multiple laps down. That still takes you out of the race.
So the only driver not electing to come down there is one of the few who didn't pick up damage in that caution. This is Ott, the 29 machine. And this could get interesting for Daniel Ott here. He's a bit offset on the fuel strat. Not in a bad spot, though. It'd only be a couple laps off in a one-stop race regardless.
No, I like his call here. I think this is a good move to try to get track position, because we saw South was really in a safe place when it came to that whole accident, and I think Ott wants to be there too. Love that paint scheme as well. I can definitely tell that's a throwback to Kevin Harvick. Of course, he's put his own little spin on it, but love that.
Yeah, you can tell with the color scheme and the number font. You can tell there's that little difference in the front. It's almost a mashup, per se, of not just his own sponsors, but that middle section towards the 2003 version of Kevin Harvick's paint schemes with RCR, blended with the 2001 version of said schemes.
Yeah, he definitely did a fantastic job on that paint scheme for sure. Pace car lights are out. We're getting ready to get this thing back underway again. Wonder if it's going to be any calmer. I don't think so. I mean, we saw 3 wide fairly immediately, fairly early here, and with the lack of, with you having faster pairs, so many of them. I mean, it's definitely gonna get crazy, and I'm just hoping all these guys don't hate each other after this race because a lot of times, like I said, it just when you don't have when you have like limited consequences. I mean, of course, like I said, you have to be able to have a car at least to be able to make it to pit road, even with the fast pair. But still, I mean, a lot of these guys are going to look at it like, hey, there's no consequences if I crash, you know?
Dustin Buckabunstill's, by the way, still pitting. Just about to get back underway again. For those just tuning in, this is the start of a brand new series here on GridVision. Superspeedway Mondays, where drivers look to settle in on Mondays throughout the pack. Gen 6 cars, a part of the rotation, as well as the trucks and Xfinity machines. All months, the rotation of various Superspeedway combinations as the season progresses. So again, to reset your top 5, it's Odd and Self on the front row. Wiley and Babcock, Lawrence and Bounty in your top 3 position rows. Yancek and Meeks, Mantle and McGinley amongst your top 10 overall. And it looks like Buck might not be able to catch up to the field. Everyone else is ready to go. Rainwater has lost 2 laps. Under 60 to go. Let's get back underway here from Daytona.
There it is. Green flag is back out in the air here. Daniel Ott kind of jumping. I don't know if I really want to jump the restart there. He is out to a couple car lengths on, I do believe, Timothy Babcock here. He's going to try to draft his way up. Can the top line answer?
Not as coordinated compared to that bottom line in the first few moments, though. There's that speed, though, from the outside we talked about. Self getting the help from Wiley. Never mind. Wiley wants the lead 3 wide as the side draft kicks in.
Yeah, looks like that middle line, Wiley's not going to get any help. No one is going to go with him. That middle line in this, especially in the next gen car, it seems to be kind of like no man's land. Nobody really wants to go there, but it looks like some guys maybe are taking it. We'll see. It looks like somebody has decided to go with Wiley here. Actually, South moves to somewhat of the middle line. He is back into the, actually, Babcock being pushed by South, I should say.
Babcock trying to play the lines once more. It's going to get curious how drivers try and play things out. The aggression level's already very clearly high with everybody so tightly wound together. But remember, these drivers, if they want to win this championship, have to do so for 12 respective weeks to fight for the title.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about how, this is a lot of it's going to be probably relying on luck. Well, I think that we're going to see guys that are just going to be kind of finding their way to the front all the time. That I think there is a certain skill. Oh, we got somebody in the wall on the front stretch here. I'm not sure exactly who that was, but it looks like these cars are getting a little bit tight in the dirty air.
That's surprising on fresh tires. I think that might have been Wiley, or around that grouping of Wiley. Hearing Cody Sanderson may have been the reason for the contact, rather, who's in that same respective grouping. But that's also going to be something to keep an eye on, because in this next-gen car, in official races, when drivers went to Daytona, the top line was actually pretty prevalent because you couldn't get a driver to side draft you from your right side.
Oh, big problem. We got a big problem in turn 4. It's like Cody Sanderson absolutely demolished that race car. Goodness gracious.
Caution flag is out for the second time. And just like that, 2 cautions in the span of about 10 laps. Definitely smashed up against the outside wall. Curious what happened there. It looked like maybe 3 on the first angle.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to go back a little bit further just to see exactly how this accident happened. But I tell you, the results of it were Cody Sanderson getting absolutely demolished. I mean, that car completely wrecked. As we're going to take a slow-mo view of this and see if we can, ascertain exactly how this happened. It was so sudden coming out of turn 4.
Looks normal. Normal. Yeah, there it is. Look at that on the front
Yeah.
of the group. You can't do that with
Yeah,
that
he
being that
turned
tight.
himself. He pretty much turned himself, tried to clear himself to the top. Was not clear, and unfortunately, he put himself straight up into the fence. So I mean, it wasn't anybody's really fault except for his own, unfortunately. And you could just see the massive impact that resulted from that. I mean, these guys were going about 200 mile an hour when he hit that wall.
Remember, a little bit of faster pairs. You had to be able to make the pit lane, though. Sanderson did not make it to the lane. And we're still outside the fuel stints to make it on a no stopper on a green flag run per se, if you were to top off this caution. So it looks like a majority of the drivers staying out here, but one driver comes in, getting back on an offset strategy, elects to come in for fuel with Royce and a couple others.
Yeah, we did have a few guys that have decided to come down and top off the fuel, and unfortunately, I think this is going to be a good day for Noah Rainwater. I think he's still in this event, 2 laps down. I think he just got one of his laps back, so good for him. He's going to be the lucky dog. Well, he was actually very far off of the pack, out of the draft. So sometimes being out of the draft can be somewhat of a saving grace.
Counterpoint, though, is you kind of need that caution to come into play for you to get that saving grace.
Yeah, for sure.
And you obviously don't hope to have that happen in most cases, but it is something that can be very beneficial in that situation per se. But in that regard, regardless here. And remember, if you have to tow, basically, for those who do not know on the iRacing service and are new to that respective aspect, how things go is if you have to tow your car, it's not as simple as it carries you immediately to the pit lane and starts the fast repair. That'd be, in fact, an advantage compared to driving into the lane per se.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on where you are on the track, the tow distance could be anywhere from a few seconds to a couple minutes. And that's where Sanderson is losing laps currently. It's where Rainwater lost laps early on because he had that incident in turn 1. Sanderson just got back on the track because his incident was turn 4 with a shorter distance. So for those curious on how that tow measurement comes into play for the tow truck, should say, that's where that comes into play. You can still use the fast repair. You still have to wait for the tow truck.
Yeah, you have to actually, in order to use that, I mean, you could use the fast repair, if you tow, of course, if you have it checked. But, but your car has to be able to make it to pit road in order to stay on the lead lap, for sure. And, a lot of the crashes we see here at Daytona are just at such high speeds that a lot of times your car's not going to be able to make it to pit road. And that's what we saw with Cody Sanderson. I mean, he hit so hard, it absolutely demolished that race car to where he had no hopes of driving it to pit road. Pace car lights are out, though, getting set to go back green, I do believe, for the 3rd time.
Already getting set for our second restart, or 3rd start overall, if you're counting the initial start of the race.
Yep.
So Self and Babcock on the front row, Babcock on the inside, Self on the outside. Mansell is already up to 3rd, and guess who's up to 4th? Austin Darbyshire with that VR headset is up inside the top 4. So far doing solid, make it top 5 because that's actually McFadden who's technically in 4th. Mark McFadden.
Yeah, I do believe that's Mark McFadden up there in that green race car. Of course, he's not pulling up to the back of South here. And this is interesting, though. South is chosen, I do believe. I wonder if he chose the top here or no. I think Babcock was already because I wonder if they do have a choose rule here in this race. I mean, that'd be a curious thing to see if to see guys maybe the leader be able to choose the top and bottom. I don't think that's the case here from what I've been seeing.
Well, keep in mind they have had some time to be able to test with the mock-up race last week in terms of the scheduling. Drivers getting the feel of things, feel of each other, seeing how things play out for the start of a brand new series. It's trial and error. You have to argue in some cases in turn when you're starting up a new league to see what works, what doesn't work.
No, 100%. And I'm glad they did that, to have that kind of that first session to kind of figure out, some of the, details and things like that here.
Let's see how this plays out. Coming to lap 13. Babcock and Self on the front row. Green flag back out. We're racing once more from Daytona. And Self has no help. Mark McFadden never went up to that back bumper of Self, and Self is alone.
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. I mean, you really have to be close to the back bumper. It looks like South, though, is going to drop down behind Bobby Mantle, try to draft his way back up there. Of course, the top line, they're working together fairly well, though. I mean, even though McFadden kind of made a little bit of a mistake, I think McFadden actually moved down to the bottom, if I'm not mistaken here. Yeah, he did, and then we're seeing the 15 of Sheik kind of making moves up on that top side. A lot of new names and new faces here in this series. Definitely loving it. Of course, I do believe we're seeing Austin Derbyshire trying to make some moves as well on that bottom.
Now, when it comes to Sheik, that is a driver for the Major Series for those who keep an eye on that action. All while Babcock holds the bottom line. And caution flag is out. You may have noticed about half the field was missing from that main pack. Looks like we have a reason why, because there's now all of a sudden a bunch of cars on pit road.
Daniel Watt, I'd look at him because it seems like Daniel Watt has some major damage. He had to take a tow. Probably going to be out of this race. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I saw somewhat of the after effects of Daniel Watt. Just the damage model is so realistic now on this on the sim. I mean, you can almost see when he was driving. You can see almost it felt like the fender was just bouncing up and down.
Take a look at that replay now, and that's why we're missing half the field.
Boy, those are some hard hits. Oh my goodness! You can almost feel them as we're going to take a look at back at it slow mo and see exactly what happened here. It looks like Onnit got loose all on his own. I'm not seeing any contact that caused the 29 to get loose like this.
Well, might need to see it one more time, but it is a thing here in the next-gen cars where if you go into the entry, you can lose the back end on the short run even, or as the tires get older.
Mm-hmm.
He did get some bump, though. That teal car up the middle did make a small bump, it looks like, for the entry, and that can be enough just to spin you just like that. And with this car, you lose the tires or slide around, you better hold on.
Yeah, for sure. You gotta bump square. That's for sure. That was a terrible, terrifying crash for a lot of those drivers. I mean, they were verging on 4 wide, even after Ott had gotten loose like that. It's just, I guarantee you those guys were probably, their heart rates probably went very high. I wouldn't even mind taking some views from some of the cockpit cameras of possibly maybe the 17. I think he'd be a good view. Tyler Meeks, who was involved in that crash, I think he'd be a good view to take from the cockpit camera if we get to look back at it.
Only listed as out. Royce and Ott also took tows. Let's take a look at that onboard as some drivers come to pit. And he was in the middle, keep in mind, entering all that. There's that contact referred to in front of him. Where'd he go?
Yeah, I mean, there's nowhere to go. I mean, this is just kind of like, I mean, you can't predict where Daniel Ott's going to be going here.
And not only that, where everyone else can go. Better yet, where that hood's somewhere going to go.
Yeah, it's just a scary experience right there. Nothing you could do. Kind of just at the mercy of the other drivers around you.
And in turn, at least 3 drivers having to go and take the tows. And that drops them laps down in turn. So under caution once again here on GridVision. Super Speedway action here on this Monday night. A brand new series for those again checking on in. Babcock out of the front majority of the way with James Self. Wiley in third. Interesting enough, Buck, who nearly lost the pack before one of the restarts, is back to 4th. Manto is inside the top 5. Now keep in mind, expect that to happen a lot with it being a super speedway race. However, usually you see drivers establish their ability to hold on to track position like we've seen from Babcock and Self especially already in this type of race format even.
Yeah, I think they found their dancing partner because I think Babcock and South know each other personally. So I feel like they're going to work together, and that's that's key. They could be probably in the same voice chat as well. They're gonna kind of strategize on how to stay together, and that is going to be big. I mean, if you could stay with another driver, and then they're going to stick with you, that could be race winning material right there. As we're on lap 16, coming to 17, we're still not in the fuel window here, and we've seen a lot of attrition starting to set in here tonight, and not even halfway, not even a quarter, I don't believe, into this race yet, and we're already seeing drivers exiting the sim.
By the way, on the bright side, Do Not Quit Racing machine Noah Rainwater is back on the lead lap, and that only took him about 12 laps.
Yeah, I'm glad to see him back on the lead lap, and Cody Sanderson, I do believe he's going to have an opportunity to possibly get back on the lead lap as well. So yeah, this is not I don't know if you necessarily need to give up, but I think there's going to be some accidents that are going to happen and you really do not want to lose out on the points that you could possibly get here in this race. I mean, especially with the way the cautions are kind of flowing and with the unlimited fast repairs, get the car fixed, get back out there, because you never know what you'll get your lap back.
So coming up to the restart with some of the last second top-offs seen there. That puts Faison Shayeth up inside the top 5. Mark McFadden also up amongst the front grouping with McGinley. Darby Shar back to the mid-pack in 10th. Lawrence back around 9th. So the shuffle continues on. 13 are on the lead lap here. And you'd have to think sometime the long run comes into play. Sometime the message comes into play. Let's get in line and work together. Top or the bottom line regardless.
Definitely be curious to see how this all kind of works out here when it comes to the lines. It seems like, I think the bottom line's been one of the best lines right now. And Babcock's been doing a good job. I know that he's got the First Coast Fleet machine very fast here tonight. Definitely would be cool to see, the sponsor of this series get a victory.
Those two have been able to dictate the tempo so far. Green flags back out. Starting lap 18 of 65 here at Daytona. And James Self very far back this time, however, on the launch. Wiley staying on the bottom. First one up on the top is Buck.
Yeah, he was still successful, though, to get down behind Babcock. You could tell that this is all a part of the plan. These guys are working together. Of course, we see, I do believe, up on that top side, someone being held out or not really getting a whole lot of help. I do believe that is Wiley. No, Buck. I'm sorry. Buck's falling back now to 6th place. It's going to be, I do believe, picked up by Austin Derbyshire. As you can see, a big challenge for the lead here. Jonathan Wiley, wow, he didn't have a whole lot of help, but still was able to get a massive run in the middle of 3 and 4.
WR1 Sim Chassis machine making the move there. But here comes that inside line once again. Still not even towards the halfway point yet. 2x2 starting to form up. And starting to look like things may be coming a touch bit. Just as I say that, they're trying to go 3 wide again.
You could just tell. I think Jonathan Wiley is very much on edge right now. Dustin Buck is trying to get to his bumper to give him some pushes. Oh, a little bit of contact with a wall here. As we do go 3 wide, this could go badly. As we see the 14, I do believe. But actually,
bumper cars up the middle. Able to hold on to it, though. That got very dicey, to say the very least. Bumper cars into turn 3, usually not good in this car.
100%. I was looking at the 14. That's actually Cody Sanderson, the driver that was involved in that crash earlier. He's not even on the lead lap, and he is really aggressively pushing.
I mean, if you're involved in the incident, let alone a bump draft when the caution comes out, you lose the lucky dog.
That's right.
This is a dangerous game to play.
Oh, and here they go, the 00, taking a trip through the grass. No caution. That, of course, being Dustin Buck. Unfortunately, on the losing side of that one.
Was that off the nose of Sanderson? Believe so.
Yeah, I do believe so. Right
Yeah,
there.
he came up.
Unfortunate. Just unfortunate for Dustin. He was looking really good. Was up in the top 5, top 3. Sanderson definitely probably not going to be getting any Christmas cards here after this race.
We're still a few months away from Christmas, don't remind me. But anyhow, Wiley's up in the front. Up to second is Derbyshire. Problem is, nobody wants to work with him.
Look at this big run from Rainwater. Wow, he is just flying right now with the aid of Sean Boundy.
And that is a grouping to keep an eye on. That is the grouping from Thunderclap, and they've found Craig Yancek. Here's the thing with Craig. He can be aggressive if you give him a chance to make the pouncing move.
You love to see these guys from different leagues working together, though. That's awesome to see. Here comes Wiley, though, trying to get to the inside with the help of Sanderson. Rainwater comes down to try to block the run. Ooh.
Did anyone tell them that it's not 2 to go, it's lap 22?
Yeah, we still got a lot of racing left to go.
Rainwater getting the push from Wiley. They stay to the bottom side. Yancek now pushes back in turn, Wiley to the top side. And keep an eye on that teal machine of Yancek. He actually just came from the SOF race from C Fixed about an hour or so ago. They're at Texas Motor Speedway for reference. A funny moment, I was talking about this with one of the drivers who competed in that, Joey Misevich, afterwards. The storyline for that was, he was talking about during the radio communications, hey guys, am I saving too much tire? Am I holding you guys up a bit? So Joey Misevich says, yes, you're holding up a little bit. Immediately gets the spot back. 10 laps later, Greg comes back and says, I think I saved just enough tire. Pushes by them, gets inside the top 5 again. 1 lap later, he spins into the grass, and the response back from Craig was, well, I shouldn't have said anything. He ended up still finishing top 10 on the bright side.
I think he's probably going to be looking for some redemption here tonight, and he's looking very fast. And we know he's capable, very capable driver. Of course, I'm surprised to see this kind of, him and Boundy working together. Of course, Boundy coming from the Thunderclap series. Oh, got a big wiggle there from McFadden up there on the top line. Oh, big hit on the wall from Derbyshire, I do believe.
That was the 21
of James South. These GridVision cards all look alike.
Well, he did design them, Austin Derbyshire. Don't forget, he's also been a long-time graphic designer on the iRacing service. He used to design a lot of paint schemes as well in the last decade. But look at the front. Boundy in that yellow car. He's getting some work pushed with Yancek. Robert Lawrence working with Wiley as well. Now back along the outside. Several others trying to sort things together. And now this is the critical part. We're starting to build a run for the first time. This is our longest run of the race.
Yeah, and I'm surprised to see that South has still got speed. I mean, even though he hit the wall pretty hard just now, he's still right there drafting up to the back of Derbyshire. Now, one thing about even this car, when you get up front, like if South was to get into the lead with that damage, I don't know how that would affect him. I think that a lot of times, we got a big wiggle there from Sanderson. Sanderson almost spun out there.
Can somebody tell Sanderson he's a lap down?
Because he's trying to earn it back the hard way.
I mean, he already was involved in one incident. I mean, at least the car's cleanish. But Wiley at this point, that actually might be the positive for Wiley in this is he has a fuel-saving buddy.
Exactly. Yeah, no, 100%. That's a big deal. Push that lap car past everybody, and you don't have to burn as much gas. I mean, that's definitely nothing wrong with that.
And just like
going to do it.
Yeah, Sanderson's at the tail end of the lead lap, so if there's a caution behind him, he gets the lead lap back, and now it's Renke who is in the lucky dog spot in 14th. Looks like Wiley looking to take that distinction back away now that he controls the inside with Rainwater.
Yeah, I don't really think that was Wiley's decision. I think Sanderson just is trying to control both lanes. Now he's in the middle. He's going to get. Now he's going to be treated like he's got the plague, because nobody's going to want to go with him in that middle line as he's getting a little bit wiggly. You can just see the turbulent air and how that 14 reacts.
Also very dicey. You'd have to consider with how things have played. But that's, again, that tough balancing act with how things are expected to go tonight and throughout a series like this. You'll see this conveyor belt of cars. It's about picking the right line, you'd have to argue, of making sure you're on the right conveyor belt.
No, yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a lot like, it's kind of a funny way to look at it is, you go to the grocery store and you see one line shorter than the other, and you go to that shorter line, and it takes longer to ring out somebody else, and you try to jump to the other line. It's really just about weighing the risk versus reward.
You see some of the battle boxes now popping up to the right. James Self, bad news. He's lost the pack. Remember, he had that scrape? No one else is nearby him. He is 9 seconds back of the lead group. He and Babcock have both lost the draft.
That's unfortunate. Those two both were at the front of this field not long ago. But now Sean Boundy, of course, in control at the moment. He is in control of the top line, I should say. Wiley in control of the bottom. And Wiley's getting some good runs. I think he was very close to leading that last lap as we're on lap 29 here coming to 30.
Still working around the track, coming up to that stage point to be able to pick up stage points. Again, at the conclusion of lap 30, points to be tabulated. Who gets those respective points to start the championship series?
Oh, big problem.
Right.
And the caution flag is going to fly as a result of that. That was a big accident with Jonathan Wiley, I do believe, involved.
Caution flag is out indeed, and a big incident right before lap 30. Sean Boundy up at the front of the time of the caution. Let's take a look.
Let's see. I want to maybe think, because I know Riley was involved in this. See right here. I think Noah Rain would have got a bad bump. Yeah, just a bad bump.
Yeah, that was not lined up flush initially. There's the pushback, and that's enough to start bobbling him back to the left offset again. And once you get that offset, things go bad, and it gets even worse when you have 3 wide off somebody's quarter panel.
Yeah, I thought that offset bump there was what caused it, but actually was something completely different on the top line happened there. Looks like I think that was a 72 of Alan Warnick. Warnick had something to do with it as well.
From the lucky dog spot again.
That was quite an accident. Unfortunately, I think Austin Derbyshire was involved in that one as well.
Hard hit for Sanderson, you see at the tail end. But let's take a look at Austin Derbyshire. He's in his VR headset tonight. He's looking the wrong way. And as you can tell by that motor gauge, it looks like motor damage.
Yeah, hopefully he's going to be able to get it. I think he's got it fired back up at least to get back to pit road. Still got some RPMs, and that's enough to at least get it there. And unfortunately, but I think this is now probably a good time. I know we haven't really paid any attention to our sponsors. I think now would be a good time to do so.
As we come up to the end of lap 30, we'll see how things get scored now here. Boundy, Yancek, Lawrence, Rainwater, Sheik, along with McGinley, McFadden, Self, Babcock, and Derbyshire scored in the top 10 as they make their way to pit road. You're watching GridVision.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to tonight's coverage of GridVision Superspeedways, where we spend a Monday, your Monday, in a pack. Just past the stage break point, or rather the stage point. But a caution came out just prior to the start of lap 30. Sean Bounty, your current leader, over Mark McFadden. Inside the top three is Shayeth, and now Lawrence is inside fourth. Rainwater in fifth as we get ready for the restart. Buck got the lucky dog as a result of the incident for Ronecki. Just about set to go. Let's get back to racing from Daytona.
Yeah, Sean Boundy with a pretty good start. I don't know, though. He kind of got a little bit of a jump, surprisingly. We're seeing the 15 of Faison not really getting the run up to his back bumper like I kind of expected. Of course, Robert Lawrence, I do believe, going to try to see, or that's Noah Rainwater actually going to try to see if he can't get him going. Lawrence is one we haven't really talked about. He's up in the top 5 here. Haven't talked a whole lot about him tonight.
Yeah, extremely quiet, it seems, from the 5 machine.
Whoa, that's not quiet. Mark McFadden getting turned. Oh, my goodness.
Caution flag is out, and there goes Craig Yancek as well to join him. And cautions breed cautions. This is our quickest draw of a caution, though. This is why.
Yeah, watch Mark McFadden. I think he got turned by maybe Robert Lawrence. We were just talking about Lawrence. I think Lawrence might have had something to do with this.
See that in the ultra slow motion. Had been on the bumper. And again, we're coming off the restart and trying to establish the offset 3 wide, and it's not worked out well.
Yeah, that was a very similar crash to the last one. I mean, Lawrence pretty much went to try to go to the inside, and unfortunately, at the inside of McFadden, and just kind of got into him. I don't know really what he was thinking there. I think he should have just kind of tried to stay there and push him, but I don't know. Definitely, it definitely affected McFadden quite substantially. He is now back in 13th.
Greg Yancek on still sliding just seen as we get back to live pictures. And a lot of drivers still trying to catch up to the pace car. So now we're in that point, mind you, where drivers can make it on fuel. And already a couple are thinking about trying to save gas because of the time of the previous caution flag. So now, What goes through your mind here? Because it's been a race with lots of attrition, lots of conveyor belt-like position swaps. How do you win this race at this point with how difficult it's been to establish things? Because the drivers who did establish things, but they're no longer up at the front. South and Babcock in particular.
Yeah, I think what you do now is you pit to make sure you have fuel. I mean, if you're not sure, you pit to make sure you have fuel, and you don't pit ever again. I would never come down pit road again, and just try to stay out to get track position. Because the closer you are to the front, the less chance you have of getting caught up in someone else's mess. And I think that's what a lot of drivers have been getting caught. All these wrecks have been happening essentially right behind the leader, and the leader has been pretty much been able to stay unscathed if he's out there. Now, of course, as soon as the leader, we saw South, Babcock, both of those guys have led this race at one point. As soon as they lost that lead, that's when they entered the danger zone. So I think really you just want to try and hold on to that lead as best as you can.
I'm bounding that respective leader right now. And it's been curious as well seeing, I will say this one thing, with how things are faring with the championship fights. Normally we see Bounty in a very different look tonight. If we get a closer look at that 34, this is a color scheme for those curious in Thunderclap competition. He has not really ran in this yellow look throughout the season. So it looks like bringing out a different look entering the championship week for Thunderclap as well.
Yeah, this could be a preview for sure. No, 100%. And he is, of course, fighting for a title. I do believe, very respected driver in the Thunderclap action. I mean, talented, very talented. At every track we seem to go to, he's very good in the Xfinity, the truck, the next gen. So he's a real contender. And if this is a preview of the paint scheme he's going to be running, you definitely love to see it for sure.
It'll be interesting to see how that championship fight plays on out. Again, that respective championship fight, the Lightning 4 for the 2023 Thunderclap iRacing Series presented by TLC Incorporated Championship, taking place this Wednesday night. Coverage starts about 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time here on GridVision. And he's up in control of the field, getting set for the restart once more. It's he alongside Shayeth now. Lawrence and Rainwater, McGinley and Self, Babcock and Mantle, Buck and Yancek, with McFadden and Darbyshire rounding up the lead lap drivers. Wiley also back down pit road with Sanderson and Warnecke. Meeks, Royce, and Ott already out of the race. Speaking of paint schemes, by the way, for Shayeth, he's amongst those in a alliance of drivers coming into this respective series. That is one of the Ronster Wraps iRacing paints machines of drivers, including the 7, the 15, and the 89. That's Mantle. That's also going to be Shayeth, and that in turn has also been the 7 machine we've seen up at the front tonight at times.
Wow.
And you would throw McGinley, actually. Technically, he's supposed to be 7.
Yeah, I know a lot about Ronster Wraps. I didn't know that Sheik was running a Ronster Wraps paint scheme. That's pretty cool to see that for sure, because I know, I think it's Ron Harrington who does those schemes. Very talented artist when it comes to making paint schemes.
And all of them rotating the various sponsors that are involved in those respective cars. So we'll see how that plays out in terms of the reliance. Those drivers lined up 2nd, 5th, and when it comes to 3rd of those respective grouping of cars, see how things play out. 9th, 8th, rather. So coming up to lap 37 this time by. That puts us just at about halfway, if not just past it. Cautious breeding cautions all throughout the night so far here in GridVision Superspeedway action. Back on our way from Daytona.
Yeah, very good start for Bounty again. He is being helped out quite substantially by Robert Lawrence. And you see Shake goes down to the bottom there. He started on top, went down bottom. Now I do believe he's going to be sitting in front of, I think that's Chad McGinley in that purple car. Of course, Chad McGinley, I do believe, started from the pole here today.
Yep.
And really faded out of relevancy early in the race, but now he's back.
And that's that teamwork we talked about. And in a series like this, that might be one of the big emphasized points. Speaking of points, to the point, Noah Rainwater. And look who's also connected up, the two friends, Babcock and Self, up on the inside line, and they're bringing Buck with them.
Yeah, South has got to be extremely happy that that caution came out that last time because he had hit the wall very hard, and of course has been able to fix that damage and is back in the battle. But one thing that I've been really impressed with is the way that Noah Rainwater can just generate a run all of a sudden like he's been doing. We've seen it a couple times tonight that he's just been able to make such huge runs. But unfortunately, I think he's not able to make that top side work as well as some of the other drivers have been able to.
Well, keep in mind, getting the top line to work also requires not just the timing of the run, but also having that right momentum, that energy build-up. And that's why we keep seeing so many drivers try and switch that up to get the energy going in their direction. The problem is, when it happens so many times, you have a checkup upon a checkup upon a checkup. Where does the energy go?
Yeah, 100%. And the checkups a lot of times happen more on the bottom side than it is on the top. And then again, we did see probably a pretty good checkup. Dustin Buck had jumped up in front of Rainwater. Rainwater, of course, was content to push him. They still got that top line starting to move, so numbers are kind of somewhat starting to build into their favor. Oh, but Buck not holding a very solid line. That was very close. We almost saw an accident right there, and Rainwater's just like, hey, I can't push you. You have to be able to predict where that driver's going to be when you're trying to push him down the straightaways, and Rainwater just could not predict that. South, I do believe, has jumped up to the top, so Rainwater, I think, is going to form somewhat of an unlikely alliance here.
It looks like they continue to follow along with the confidence of how Self and Buck have, or rather Self and Babcock have ran tonight. Just not a lot of cars on the top line quite yet again. But that might actually play to the strength of those two, because speaking of strengths, that nearly turned into a weakness because that outside line nearly imploded.
It just seems like, I don't know what's going on at this point in the night, but it seems like these drivers are very much on edge. They're just not able to push as well as we've seen earlier in the race. I don't know if it's maybe the temperature has cooled down quite a bit and is maybe loosening the cars up.
Yeah, it's almost as if I'm trying to double check if there's a full moon out in real life action right now. Well, you never know. It kind of is one of those types of feelings tonight.
Yeah, no, I hear you for sure. And a lot of people don't believe that that has an effect on stuff. But if you ask a police officer, you ask a nurse, you ask anybody that's in an emergency response or anything like that, if a full moon doesn't have an effect on people, it does.
Lots of crazy things can happen. Oh, and
crazy things. Speaking
wow.
of which, I think that was Wiley just smashed the wall.
That was on his own. What just happened to Wiley?
I think he just turned into a werewolf and hit the wall.
And Wiley has towed. We stay green because there was no other cars luckily around. I'm not sure what just happened to the 114.
No, that was definitely very much just unpredictable. We couldn't predict that to happen. I mean, he was all by himself. I wondered if it had to be possibly a technical failure. Something. Maybe the wheel came unplugged or something like that, because you don't just see that at Daytona very often.
But for now, we stay green with 24 to go. Boundy looking to try to retake the race lead. Oh, wow. Several teammates line up on the bottom. That's Buck trying to go in between the lines, and now nearly bumping the lines.
Yeah, unfortunately, no one really going with him, though. He's going to fall back probably to the back with the lack of draft and just that turbulent air that's in that middle lane. Oh, and there goes the caution flag's going to come back out again as we see a big accident. Big hits there. Of course, I do believe Buck was involved in this one as well.
Back under caution. And Sanderson already has had to take the tow with the indicator to the pit lane. Let's take a look at the replay. Yep.
Of course, that was the 00 and the 14. As Sanderson, I think, was still trying to earn his way back on the lead lap, and unfortunately, that's going to get even harder now, is that how hard of a lick that was.
Indeed, it is Buck that gets the contact there, but there is Mantle, and the Mantle falls off the wall.
Oh man, yeah, Bobby involved in that. I mean, nothing really he could do. He had it almost missed, but luckily he's going to be able to drive himself to pit road to be able to get that fast repair.
At this point, the Pez machine full of race cars, you have to think is nearly running out of race cars.
You would think. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm glad we're on the sim right now because, yeah, that would be a lot of money being spent on new race cars if this was in real life. I mean, man. And it looks like I'm seeing Buck is stopped on the on pit road. Has not actually entered his box. He's just stopped on pit road right now.
So curious on what happens here.
Oh,
Also,
there he goes. Now he's moving.
Well, Mantle's also in the pit lane, by the way. There goes Buck as he gets to that pit box, just a couple stalls ahead. But Wiley is also out of the race, and we'll see how things now play out with 22 laps to go. So, in other news, race cars all across GridVision throughout the week. We've seen earlier on in the week some action to start off a new series. In the case of the Cairo Cup and its Xfinity Series cars this past Sunday, you have Champion getting back underway tomorrow. You have the championship for Thunderclap getting itself concluded. It's a busy time, to say the very least.
No, it definitely is. I mean, we got a race pretty much every day of the week. It seems like, and Sunday we got 2 races. But I like this Monday series. This could impact a lot of those races, though. Because think about it. I mean, we got guys that are in from Champion. We got guys that are from Thunderclap. We got guys from if you get in an accident with somebody in this race and it kind of upsets you a little bit, that could lend or change the mindset, the way you race someone in the actual series that you are competing in. That you came from before.
It can. You're right on that, because I'm going to be honest, that is something that has come into play a couple times. I'll just say that. But it's going to be interesting how all that plays out in the next couple of days or so in, mind you, different vehicles. As everyone adds to their files in the memory banks of what drivers have done. And for those curious, yes, I do keep a folder of that. What, you
know? A
don't?
lot of racers do. A lot of drivers on the sim definitely have long memories. I still remember. There's just too many. My list has gotten so long that I've forgotten a lot of the list.
The funny thing is, there was one event or one incident where in the early days when I was on the Service Racing 2015, battling for second, final lap, guy spins me out of the final corner. I mentioned that I remember the incident he caused 3 years later, and people are like, do you have the memory of an elephant? He didn't even remember the incident. That's how long some people's memories go. It depends on the person if they choose to keep the memory in the memory bank or if they delete that for extra space. 20 to go.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it sounds like you got an eidetic memory for when people have wrecked you. That's like.
So, Sean Bounty and Noah Rainwater up at the front. So, 2 of the Thunderclap drivers, followed by Lawrence from Champion. He's joined by James South from just the person named James. We made a bit of a joke with that before earlier because didn't recognize the name because it's been a few years since the last time we spoke. Austin Derbyshire is Austin. Babcock is Babcock. Shayeth from Majors. McFadden from Everywhere. McGinley from GRL. And Yancek from Champion.
I gotta think. I think the actual quote was some guy named James.
Yes. It's in the same realm of that Jones boy that was said by Ken Squire before. You can argue at least.
Yeah. Here we go, though. Getting ready to get this thing back underway. I'm definitely excited to see who's going to come out on top on this one. Who's going to survive this trial, this onslaught here tonight.
So, with 19 to go when the green flag flies, how will the conveyor belt of race cars go? And how many repairs to the conveyor belt need to be made? About to find out. Sanderson and Warnecke are both laps down coming to the restart. Buck still yet to catch up to the field, and looking like they might not make it in time for the green flag.
I'll tell you, if we sold some fast repairs tonight, we'd be making a lot of money.
Oh, don't give any ideas on that part. 19 to go. Green flag is out, back underway.
Yeah, good start there for Bounty with the aid, of course, Robert Lawrence. Lawrence jumps up. Bounty, of course, sticks with him as they jump up in front of Rainwater. I see Austin Derbyshire down on the bottom. Of course, it looks like everybody has pretty much moved up to the top. This is kind of interesting to see this. Oh, never mind. Here comes, I do believe, Sal to the inside.
And not a surprise, that's what's Babcock. They've been lined up much of the time. They pick up Derbyshire. Bounty sticking to that top line, though. That's been a solid line all night long in terms of keeping straight line speed.
It just seems like it's incredibly hard to actually bump draft in this car. I'm wondering what we're going to see next week in the Gen 6. So glad to see that car coming back. All kinds of cars this season we're going to have. I mean, the Gen 4.
Now, remember the Gen 6 package in particular, one of the final packages before the switch to next gen in 2022. Really was an exciting package because of the ability to just not just pack race a bit, but also bunch up. But I'm curious how it is now these days.
Yeah.
Especially with the side draft effect. We've seen that be a big prevalent play back at the end of that life cycle.
Well, that was an interesting move there. A little bit of indecisiveness. We saw Chad McGinley, I do believe, jump down, and I think I saw Craig Ganzak think about going with him, but just decided not to.
But now that's that top line of patience we talked about. Eventually, somebody would establish this. In real life, they run the wall. Guess what? We're running the wall.
Yeah, of course, running up there. A lot of people take that's like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, you would want to take the shortest distance around this racetrack, but you're able to just, you don't have to turn the wheel quite as much up there, so you're able to just kind of keep the speed and really get the RPMs as high as they need to be in order to, maximize the top speed up there.
But even that, we talked about the side draft force. That's why they're separated out by a car length. A lot of people like to think, okay, let's go up the middle. Have you ever gone into where you get side draft from both sides and you end up losing 20 miles an hour? That's the kind of argument you could throw too.
McFadden, I think there's some issues there with McFadden.
Caution. And more trouble indeed. You've seen it first.
Taking a look at it slow-mo here. You see Mark McFadden. I'm not sure what happened here. It looks like he came up. I would assume. Well, no, maybe somebody came down. They met in the middle, it looks like. I'm trying to see who that is that came down there.
That was Babcock. Yeah. I think, again, that was the argument of someone thinking, let's go to the top. There's the better line there. And ours saying, let's go to the bottom. The better line's there. Unfortunately, lines were crossed.
Yeah, going for the same real estate, essentially.
Let's take a look through with Babcock one more time. And that actually might decalibrate his wheel before the second hit. Let's take a look.
The gyro camera, love this camera angle. He started drifting down.
He's seen a hole. So did McFadden. Unfortunately, they slammed the door off each other, and both of them got ricocheted apart. So, with that being said, under caution, under 15 to go, Sean Bounty, your leader. Let's take a break. When we come back, the closing stages of GridVision Superspeedways and its opening race in series history. You're watching the Next Gen Cars from Daytona, presented by First Coast Fleet Services.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to GridVision, where we have confirmed that it is not a full moon night. For those curious, the next full moon, or the full harvest moon, is September 29th. So in other words, you can't blame the moon for the craziness tonight. So we're coming up to 12 laps to go. We have 13 cars left. Who's your pick, Brian?
I don't know, man. I mean, I think Sean Bounty, he's been very consistently up here in the lead, and he's not one you ever really doubt. I mean, I would ever really doubt, because, I mean, I think he's just a solid driver, knows how to make rational decisions under pressure. I'm going with the 34.
Bounty's been able to do so throughout the year in Thunderclap. Can he do so against some of the top drivers in multiple different series? Lawrence along on the outside. Rainwater with a chance to push him, though, on the restart. 12 to go. Up to the box. Back and away.
Green flag back out in the air. Bounty getting some help there from Rainwater. They both move up to the top. This has been as this race has gone on, it seems like this top line has gotten awfully popular, and I'm wondering if maybe because the rubber getting laid down has changed this track to where that's the optimal line.
Once again, that's just the line that's preferred to keep it clean too, and the patience line almost in real world racing. Here's the thing. If you aren't comfortable on the top, that is a very big disadvantage. Mark McFadden already losing ground into turn 3, for example, from the checkup. And it looks like we've lost one car in the grouping. Babcock and also Buck is 22 seconds back of the field as he tries to get back going. First cars to the bottom, South and Derbyshire. The GridVision cars hooking up.
Yeah, wouldn't it be something to see one of those GridVision cars win the first GridVision Superspeedway race? I mean, that would be awesome to see. I know a lot of people say, oh, y'all were cheating.
It's a fixed series. How can you do that?
I don't know. They're running different setups. I don't know. I'm just playing.
Don't say that. Don't say that. 10.5 laps to go, and now side draft going to be a major factor here. You see that starting to slow down the top line. James Self is trying to pull those left rear quarter panels.
It looks like this is only pretty much a pack of 9 people right now. So a little bit less of a chance of possibly having an accident. But then again, we're getting so close to the end of this thing that the intensity is just going to continue to rise.
10 laps to go. Bounty still remaining patient. Self still trying to pull back cars. Craig Jancek is now trying to pull back the inside line, if anything. And that's how big that effect is. You see right there, they lost all the ground they picked up the past 2 laps just from Jancek coming down to side draft them.
Yeah, dumping all that air on their noses, and unfortunately that just slowed them down substantially. They're going to have to try to see if they can't draft their way back up to Jancek here. And look at that, they get a huge run, drop back down to the inside.
Does Craig get to the quarter panel? He's trying it.
They're getting close. That side draft is getting incredibly close.
That's kind of what you need to do, though. If you want a side draft, is get close. Thing is, you don't want to get to the point where you're blowing air on the quarter panel, per se. If you catch the drift.
Yeah, no, for sure. You get too close, you could end up having some contact, or like you said, just a little bit of the air kind of pushing that car, or pulling that car into the other driver. They're still trying to make that bottom work as Jancek comes down again to try to see if he can dump some air on him.
Not lined up with the quarter panel, though. Just a 2-car tango up on the inside. Coming to 8 laps to go. McFadden, Wernicke, and Babcock have all lost the pack. Question's going to be, does that inside line gain the numbers it needs? And keep in mind, if you remember back to a few months ago, those races that were held by Champion to start off their respective season, the next-gen car win did come down to a driver waiting for that last move to make sure they did get pulled back. I may or may not have been that person who made that move to win the race, but you get the point.
No, I mean, no, for sure. I mean, no matter what car you're driving at a track like Daytona, you're going to want to wait to make that move out of turn 4 on the last lap to kind of take that option away from everybody else. I think you see...
But I'd argue almost out of turn 2.
There.
Turn 4 might not be enough here with this car. You might need turn 2 and then a shove from behind to equal out the energy.
So we'll have to wait and see how that kind of plays out. I know Bounty probably feels like he's a sitting duck, and I know those guys are trying to get the bottom line working, of course, that being James South and Austin Derbyshire. Eventually, some guys are going to decide to go down there. Because, oh man, those GridVision cars are very wiggly right now. I don't know what it is, but right now it just seems like it's impossible to almost push another driver.
Trying to go back underneath again. They try once more to get something going. Just nothing doing for the most part. Outside the one side draft to the back of the group. A little contact between them. That's South on the bubble from the contact with Derbyshire, and that loses them both the pack.
That's just a heartbreaker right there. They're probably going to both, lose the draft. I mean, this car is so bad about that. Whenever you, in the truck or the Xfinity, if you're a second back, you can still draft your way back up. This car is not that way. If you get even about a half a second back, you're pretty much done.
They've officially confirmed that they've lost the pack, 7/10 back and losing ground and fast. They need a caution with 5 laps to go. It's now a 7-car battle for the race win. Sean Bounty trying to play defense. Now some pokes and moves. That's a look now this time for Shayeth. His teammate McGinley does not go with them though.
Now, if these guys up here start battling one another and start going side by side and stuff like that, that could possibly bring South and Derbyshire back into it. We'll have to see. It doesn't look like they're really willing to battle right now, though, as we're coming to 4 laps to go. Of course, they do look like they're starting to get a little restless, though. I see Noah Rainwater maybe trying to peek out. Oh, here we go. Move coming.
Here comes a 3-car line. Mantle, McGinley, and Shayeth all line up. 3 teammates on the inside. This may help those GridVision cars keep the draft, or at least one. But as they fight, will the team power work together? They're trying the triple tango that was utilized a lot in open competition earlier this year.
And you can see as soon as they went side by side, South was able to catch up. So that just shows being side by side like that really slows them down. But Bounty, of course, is still in control of that top line. We are starting to see that bottom line really make something happen here. Do we see 3 wide? I think it's a possibility.
Yet even no major side draft movements. A little bit of movement from Rainwater up the track. Right now an 8-car breakaway from the rest of the field. 3 laps to go at the stripe. Bounty leads the outside line, inside line by Mantle.
This is going to be close. I mean, you can see how close they are even coming across the start-finish line. I mean, they were neck and neck. 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom. That's about as good as it gets here. This is going to be, if it stays like this is going to be a very close finish.
There's the push, though. That's the one that Mantle needed to get to the point. 2.5 laps to go, but he can't get to the outside to put the block on Bounty.
Yeah, that was kind of too big of a push, to be honest with you. I mean, you really saw Mantle he got clear. He could have jumped up in front, but unfortunately, Chad, because of how big that push was, had to get out of the gas and fell back as a result.
Is there going to be any time for them to gather that run back up? 2 laps to go. Rainwater committed to Bounty currently. Lorenzo on with the N6 staying up on that top line. James Self has also moved to the top.
Yeah, so now the numbers advantage is up at the top again, so that's going to kind of hurt that the chances of that bottom. Oh, Yanzak is getting incredibly close to that bottom line. That's still a little too close for comfort.
Oh, that little bit too close on the bubbles. Oh. And there they go in the wall.
That is Yanzak. Oh, that's going to take out, I do believe, him and I think that was South.
No caution yet. They spin at the back, coming to the white flag this time by South with significant damage. White flag in hand, but the caution is out.
And that is going to lead to a green-white checker. We had almost gotten the white flag. If that caution had came out just a split second later, we would have finished this race. And look at that, Yanzak and South getting involved with one another. Big accident there for Yanzak. That is going to hurt.
It looks to be okay, and then what happens to draw the caution? Wonder if it was off more so Self. There were 2 slow cars, keep in mind, that drew the caution. Keep in mind, if you have cars slow around, say, 30, 40 miles an hour on the racetrack, that can draw the yellow flag if they're on the racing surface.
And I do have, I think an admin actually threw that caution. That was an admin thrown caution.
So either way, as we'll gather things together, a 2-lap shootout here. That helps a couple drivers. That makes things even more difficult for Bounty, though.
Yeah, I guarantee you Bounty didn't want to see that caution. I mean, he had a really good shot at winning this race, and But, I mean, still, Rainwater could have possibly maybe generated some sort of move on him. But this is definitely going to complicate things. It's also going to bring a lot more people back into this fight. I mean, we're going to literally add, Alan Warnicki to the fight, Timothy Babcock, Mark McFadden. I think Dustin Buck might get a lap back here, too. Yes, he does. He's going to be back on the lead lap. So that's 13 cars that are going to be fighting in this green-white checker.
So a few drivers getting faster pairs, a few of them getting fuel, and a few of them getting tires. And again, part of the reason for the tires is, why not? You're at the back of the field, and if everyone's sliding around, why not? And there's also the argument that actually was a good point. This was something discussed a bit at the time in the open side. You actually can go a bit faster when you have more fuel in it because the back end is lower down to the track.
That's definitely interesting. I didn't really consider that. I mean,
well, fuel adds weight, right? And if you remove weight, that raises the rear end. And keep in mind, when you put that fuel in, that's been a tactic drivers have been able to use as part of the fuel strat to plant the back end. That's where with the short fuel strats in open competition, mind you, why they have to adjust to that to get that same plan.
That's definitely curious. I mean, you would think, stability, I guess, is very important here at a track like Daytona. I mean, especially with what we've seen thus far tonight as well. I mean, a lot of these drivers have been on edge. You can clearly see it all race long. And just to have that little bit of extra stability in the rear end, I think is worth it for sure. Seeing some driver driving on the apron.
Still coming up to the restart. Boundy up in control. Rainwater second. Lawrence and Mantle, your top four. Are you going to change your pick, Brian?
I'm going to stick with it. I mean, I picked Boundy. I mean, I think that he's if Rainwater sticks with him and he's loyal, I think Boundy's got it. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, this is just such a dice roll.
We're about to find out where the dice lays out. And just to confirm, again, if you get to the white flag, it's a race simply to the checkers. Depending on the count, Brian, we may see multiple chances of green-white checkers. We may not. What's the count say?
3. We have 3 opportunities for potential green-white checkers. We're going to be, of course, on green-white checkered attempt number 1. So we could possibly see 2 more if this one does not go well.
And if it gets to that point, that makes things more difficult for those at the front because, remember, some of these drivers haven't pit since around that caution around lap 30. And the fuel runs is about 40. You talk about potentially drivers running out on the third GWC up at the front.
That's actually a really good point. I didn't think about that. I mean, because I saw Robert Lawrence. He was down on the apron kind of a little bit there, trying to shorten the track up. I thought he was just kind of playing around down there, but maybe he was saving gas a little bit as he's actually trying to warm up his tires. But yeah, I mean, fuel could be a concern if we have, especially if we use all 3 green-white checkers. That is good. I think these guys are going to be on fumes that are on this have been out that long.
John Boundy has controlled the front of the field for much of the second half of the race. Can he build some momentum, entering a chance for a championship in Thunderclap with a win to start a new championship with the GridVision Superspeedway Series this Monday night? Let's find out with Rainwater alongside. Then you have Lawrence and Mantle, McGinley, and Shayeth. Keep in mind, 3 teammates, 4 through 6, coming up to the green flag. 2 laps to go. Green-white checkered number 1 is underway.
Really good start there for Boundy. He had a big help from Robert Lawrence there. See Chad McGinley as well right there in line as they move up to the top. Oh, 3 wide. McGinley getting shuffled out by Babcock.
Babcock getting aggressive. And now some of the teammates trying to sort out what they can do. They are not in the same line. Now it's where do you find the friends now that they line up? Rainwater amongst those trying to rain back to the inside. Pardon me, that's Munsto's Warnecki all of a sudden, who's back up here.
Where did he come from, right? Definitely looking very quick.
Coming to the white flag this time by this to close it out. 2.5 miles to go from Daytona. Starting to block the lines. Here comes Jancic, and there goes Lawrence. Bounty blocks the run on the inside. Two members with the same technical lies behind him.
Yeah, interesting to see that block there. I'm surprised that worked out because, I mean, Lawrence, I think, had his nose underneath. Seen a lot of wiggling up on the top side as well. Rainwater. And here comes the big move from Janczak. Moves up to the top.
Oh,
Three wide all of a sudden.
He brains Warnecki as they go and try and block the lines. Contact as they nearly wreck. One final shot. Lawrence and Bounty to battle for the win. They wreck behind as Bounty blocks the lines. Checker flag. Sean Bounty wins the first Super Speedway race for GridVision.
Hate to say I told you so, but that's unfortunate for Craig Janczak. Man, he got spun out of turn 4, but I think that's just the aggressive nature of the last lap here as Sean Bounty takes the dub. Fireworks shooting off here at Daytona. Wow, what a race.
1-3 for the Thunderclap entrants tonight. A second place run for the highest running driver from Champion Action. You also have GRL with 2 drivers in the top 5. But Sean Bounty doing Sean Bounty things tonight. What can you say? It's hard to beat someone that knows how to keep a car clean, and he wasn't involved in really any trouble tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if he'd never used a fast repair.
Yeah, I don't think he did. I think he's been really clean all race long, and I think the key has been to stay up front, just to try to have the track position because you don't get involved in many accidents if you're up front, as he's going to do a little bit of some celebrating out here. Maybe damage the car now, but, man, this is going to really be a great confidence booster and momentum builder for his championship hopes on in the Thunderclap race. I mean, this is going to be to come in there already as a winner in the first GridVision Super Speedway race. It's I think that's going to be big. I think this could be maybe the difference maker on Wednesday.
So let's talk about the unofficial race results as Sean Bounty celebrates the win here at the World Center of Racing. Once again, Sean Bounty picking up the victory tonight, as mentioned, here in GridVision Super Speedways action. Then Robert Lawrence coming away in the second spot tonight. That difference just 0.05 seconds. Noah Rainwater in third, then McGinley, McFadden, Babcock, along with Shayeth. Also Mantle and Derbyshire and Warnecki in the top 10. Keep in mind, Warnecki on back involved in incidents. In fact, as things reset here for the sim, Buck now moved up to the 10th spot. Jancic and Warnecki with Self not finishing as a result of the crash. Sanderson, Wiley, Meeks, Royce, and Ott all DNF'd here tonight.
Yeah, that's a look top to bottom. Definitely unfortunate to see that kind of shakeup after the checker.
But in the end, Sean Bounty picks up the victory. We'll start things off 3-2-1 to start off the interview order. Rainwater discussing things with his fellow competitors. Let's jump on in with Noah Rainwater now. Noah,
how's it going?
You finished third tonight. How's it feel to start off things in this series with the top 3 run, a 1-3 for Thunderclap-based entrants?
Feels great. I'm finally happy to finish the Super Speedway race and just finish somewhere up front finally. Me and Sean and I can't remember the guy's name, Robert, man, we had it going there on the top with Craig as well, and just really that caution there at the end really sucked, but I was really wanting to get that win, and they went to the bottom, and I got stuck out on top, but I was able to sacrifice third.
Gonna say, how was it trying to plan things out knowing attrition was big, but also the timing was big to get the right runs, to get on that conveyor belt?
It was very hard because those runs come really fast, like out of nowhere. And, usually it's like you want to wait till you're coming out of 4 on like a normal setup and you'll get a run. But these cars, man, it's just like they come immediately. So it's just like, it's very hard to time it very well. But I think we did good.
So, Gen 6 cars are next week, but it's at a different combination per se than normal. It is the Atlanta Superspeedway, the modern day Atlanta Motor Speedway. How do you think that car is going to run there, that Gen 6 package?
I can't say much. I don't even think I own the Gen 6 yet, actually. So I might have to buy it and put some practice in. But I love the track, so I'm excited.
Well, anyone you want to give a shout out to with this top 3 run and knowing the Thunderclap finales coming up?
Oh yeah, shout out to y'all for putting this on and broadcasting Thunderclap, and the great teammate of Sean Boundy and the family watching at home.
Once again, it's Noah Rainwater who comes away third tonight. Robert Lawrence finishes off in second. Robert is with Brian.
Robert, definitely a good job for you tonight. I mean, I know you really, weren't really relevant, I should say, and I hope I don't hurt your feelings saying that, but you weren't really that relevant earlier in the race. But was that kind of the plan to not really, kind of be involved in all the kind of the chaos and mess?
That was my entire plan, and my entire plan was just try to keep it clean. Try not to use anything up that I didn't need to, and just try to feel out the field since it's kind of the first time with everyone. So I was just trying to see who I can work with, who I can't, kind of see who I need to stay away from, stuff like that. And then towards the end, we got our little group together and got working together pretty decent. So turned out pretty good. Just it sucks for one of our teammates, Craig. He got out of 4. He got turned around by accident, but it's part of it. So live and learn.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to ask too is about the handling of the car. It seemed like a lot of the drivers out there were on edge. It seemed very hard to push. Harder than we've seen in past races here at Daytona. Yeah,
it's for some reason it was very edgy. For some reason, it just you sit there and do. I mean, everyone does a little bit of a wiggle, but it seemed like for some reason everyone was wiggling a little bit more, getting a little more of the snake going, and it. Pushing at if you weren't lined up just right, it either kick you or the guy in front of you kind of off center. So it's kind of an unfortunate game of doing that the entire time, but some of us can get it figured out and some of us just can't. Plate racing. We'll get it figured out eventually.
100%. Well, definitely great job, though. Good start to the GridVision Superspeedway Series points for you, Robert. Next week, we're going to be heading, of course, to Atlanta Motor Speedway, or Atlanta Superspeedway, as we've dubbed it, in the Gen 6. Now, that's the one. That's kind of a little bit of a throwback. How you feeling about that?
I am very excited for that one because there is going to be lifting. There will be it's the Gen 6, which is so sorely missed in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of this next gen car in my opinion, but the Gen 6 was my bread and butter. So hopefully it turns out pretty good for me. We got a good little group here that we can work together and trust each other with. So let's just try to keep going.
All right, Robert. Well, thanks for your time here tonight. Who can we give a shout out to before we let you go?
Well, thank you guys, the GridVision, for putting it on, dealing with our chaos tonight. Sorry it probably wasn't up to everyone's expectations, but we can only go up from here. That's the way I'm going to look at it and take it. So thank you guys for dealing with it, and I want to give a shout out to my company, L&L Repair, and everyone else that's involved with this. I'll have to get more rehearsed for everyone else, but I appreciate everyone involved.
Well, thanks, Robert. We definitely appreciate y'all as well getting involved, and without you guys, it wouldn't be any fun to call these races. So thanks, Robert.
I appreciate it. Yep, thank you.
So Robert Lawrence coming away in second spot, but the winner tonight to start things off, Sean Boundy. He gets it done here on GridVision. Sean kept it the cleanest out of anybody tonight. What are your thoughts so far?
I couldn't say that about the beginning of the race. Thank God we had several fast repairs for tonight, because I was in just about every major wreck at the first quarter of this race. The car was fun. The setup was fun. Shout out to who is it? Speed Labs, Reaper Speed Labs, Reaper. That's what it is. Reaper Speed Labs. It's it's a fun setup, but like it demands a bit of maturity to run this setup because you get these super fast runs, and if that car blocks you in front of you, you're wiping out the field. If you check up, you have to really pick and choose when you're going to pass a car when you got a big run and a car in your way, and hopefully do it safely. So I mean, hopefully we'll clean a lot of that up. And now that the drivers have seen, how aggressive the setup is, and once we got to racing, it was fun. Very much in control and understanding what the car will do in the draft, and knowing that you pretty much, basically a shout out to all the guys that I ended up racing with, Janzik, Lawrence, Rainwater. Once we could all get up there and run the top line, basically had a plan. Just break up the draft on the inside. I wasn't worried about when they got next to me, just ride down on corner entry, separate the two on the inside, and pull back up to the high side and keep our momentum going. And unless we screwed ourselves up, there wasn't really anything breaking that up.
I think you answered just about all the questions I was about to ask there, but
Been down this road.
Okay, but there is Atlanta Motor Speedway with the Gen 6 cars coming up. Noah Rainwater said he doesn't have that much experience with the combination. Keep in mind, the configuration didn't really come into play until the next gen level. Your thoughts on that combination next week?
At this point, it's really not much different. I'd hate to give away secrets, but I really don't care. Atlanta is a track that you should run about, once you get 10 laps on your tires, run at about 3/4 speed and pretty much the same way you just saw it tonight, up against the wall. If you get a long run going, the front tires are going to wear out pretty good. It does wear the fronts, and you start pushing really hard going into the corner. So if you back it up a little bit, you just go faster. I don't mind talking about that. I just hope for really good racing and competition. And it's really going to come down to, who's kind of saving the tires there. But I think you're still going to see a mid to high line dominance at that track, unless, we're getting some new setups. These aren't iRacing setups, so there could be a little bit of shift and just adapt to it. But I still think in general, you're going to have about the same race.
Any shout outs you like to give?
Just, the Reaper setup labs, or the speed labs. I'll get that right eventually. And you guys here at GridVision, it's a new league. You're putting a whole bunch of stuff together, and hopefully, as it grows, it attracts bigger drivers, and we'll have some good, clean, long run competition in just a matter of time. But we got to stay out here and get rid of some of these caution flags.
Well, either way, congratulations on the win tonight, Sean.
Thank you very much.
Sean Bounty gets the job done tonight here in GridVision Superspeedways competition. I'd like to thank him, Noah Rainwater, as well as Robert Lawrence for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage here on GridVision. On that note, Brian, your thoughts on tonight as we get ready to go to Atlanta next week?
I mean, we did have quite a bit of cautions here, but still, I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a smashing success, and probably key word is smashing. But I mean, it was a lot of fun. I had a good time calling the race with you, Justin, and I look forward to seeing what the future holds here with this. I mean, it was cool to see drivers from different leagues that we cover coming in here and competing with one another.
And with that being said, lots of action still to come with many of these drivers you've seen here tonight here on GridVision, as drivers get ready in the next coming days for the Champion Power Equipment Truck Series. They start the fall campaign tomorrow night at 9. You have the Thundercloud iRacing Series playoff finale presented by TLC Incorporated the next day at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, all with the NASCAR iRacing Series competition at the 9 p.m. slot on Friday. And don't forget about the Global Racing League, as well as the Real Good Racing Cup Series as well on Sunday. Until that mark, though, it's time to say goodbye. Our broadcast partner tonight, Brian Britt for Zendel Collins. I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening. You've been watching the GridVision Sundays Series Opener, where we spent Monday in a pack.